College radio is the essence of free speech.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's about to be a bumpy ride.
It should be fought for, shared with, and supported by the very community it represents.
I missed probably everything you said.
It's raw, unfiltered, and now we are global.
Siempre seré parte de la nación de Mavericks y estoy encantada.
Welcome to MavRadio On Demand.
Omaha now this weekend has Creighton, Washington, and Drake at the Blue Jay Invitational. It's kind of a home match for them, although it's across town in Creighton. Jack and Jack, what do you guys seeing this weekend as they face two ranked teams in the Blue Jay Invitational?
Yeah, obviously we saw it against Kansas, who was receiving votes that they got swept last Tuesday at Baxter Arena. The last set, I think they could take a lot from that. They really played tough, hung with them, and hopefully they take some stuff from that match into this match against Creighton and then Washington, as you said.
Going into the Blue Jay Invitational, as you can see, they play two ranked teams out of three matches they play. So if they can stick with number 17th ranked Creighton and 12th ranked Washington, that'll really show the teams around the Summit League that this UNO team could be for real.
Yeah, and I think something else to watch in that Drake team, too. Courtney Moorhead, transfer from Drake, maybe facing her whole team. That might be a little something as well. But I think we'll go through all of you here. What would you say is a good takeaway for Omaha this weekend? Would it be to take 1 of 3 but look competitive in those matches against Creighton and Washington? Washington did get upset last week by Hawaii on the road, I happened to see. I don't know how I saw that. But Washington did lose last week, so they're obviously beatable as well. Do you think they have to pull off an upset? Do you think they have to beat Creighton for it to be a successful weekend? Ethan, what are you looking at here?
I'm really going to say as long as that first match against Creighton is competitive, things will be looking upwards for the rest of the weekend. Yes, Washington is ranked number 12, and I think we really could get it done against Drake, with us and Drake being the only unranked foes in this Blue Jay Invitational. But I really think with how well Creighton is playing, I really think that the Mavs just need to compete early in that match, kind of set the tone for the rest of the Invitational. I mean, with it being here in Omaha, you know the black and red of Omaha fans are definitely going to travel to the to Creighton's campus and watch that. I'm sure they'll be there for all 3 matches. So it'll be nice for the Lady Mavericks if they can just compete early and then kind of set the tone for how they want to play out the rest of the Blue Jay Invitational, as well as when they start facing some steeper competition here in the Summit League moving forward.
Jack D, what do you think is going to be a successful
D.
Jack D and Jack M? I like just Jack and Jack better because it's kind of funny. They're both wearing blue today too, so it makes it a little more confusing.
Blue and orange.
Blue and orange.
Yeah, I would agree with Ethan on that. I think we can beat Drake. I think that's definitely a winnable match. But kicking it off with Creighton, I think really having a good showing in that game, maybe taking a set, or even if you don't, at least being competitive in all 3 would be a great way to start the weekend. And then Washington, as you said, they got upset. Anyone can beat anyone, so you never know there.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think the name of the game this weekend is just compete, see, hopefully extend as many sets as you can against both Creighton and Washington, and look to grab a win in the final game against the Drake Bulldogs.
So, again, that's 3 games this weekend. I think the big thing, I think Omaha has to take one of those 2 ranked matches. I don't think they have to, but I think it would be huge for them if they could for confidence moving forward, because conference play is really almost done. I believe they just have one more invitational, which is against lesser opponents. They might end up sweeping that one. It's Idaho, CSUN, and Grand Canyon. I believe that's down in Arizona. So they could end up sweeping that before conference play begins on September 27th. If they could beat one of those 2 ranked teams this weekend, I think that would be huge. I think they could, and I think they will beat Drake. I would love to see Omaha take 2 of 3 at the Blue Jay Invitational this weekend. And then, to that point, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
And then outside the Blue Jay Invitational before they head down to Phoenix.
Read my mind.
Yeah, they play High Point on Sunday.
And that one will be at Baxter Arena, and you can hear Ethan and I on that call Sunday. I believe that's at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
1 o'clock. That'll be on MavRadio.fm and omavs.com. But plenty of volleyball this weekend. They have 4 matches in 3 days. So it should be a fun weekend for Omaha Volleyball. We'll shift gears now over to Omaha Women's Soccer, who were in action on Friday night as they met Ball State. So they're still looking for that first home win. Actually, both our soccer teams looking for that first home win. They drop one to Ball State. We're going to throw it over to Jack here first because he's got the write-up already pulled up. Jack, what do you think about Omaha's performance against Ball State as we saw Kelly Lemke in the net yet again?
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well. Obviously, they lost, and they coming off the loss to Memphis. Another injury, Reagan Zimmers, unfortunately, was carried off with an injury, being reported as an ACL tear. I thought Kelly Lemke, she had 5 saves in her first start. I thought they played well. Unfortunately, they took the L, though.
And then we move over to Jack McMonigal. You got anything on this Ball State matchup?
I think any matchup is tough when you have 3 starters, 2 of them with ACL tears. So I think the name of the game for the Mavs the rest of the way is just dealing with those injuries. And it's all about next man up and see who can step up for the Lady Mavs as they move on with 2 ACL tears and then a collarbone injury.
Ethan, we move on to you. Is there any point to worry considering Omaha hasn't taken a non-conference match at home yet?
I mean, obviously you're going to be a little bit nervous. You're playing some tough opponents, but as I'm looking here, just the overall team statistics, Omaha only had 1 shot on goal in the entire first half. I mean, that compared to Ball State's 8 shots on goal. So, I mean, the Mavericks were outshot 14-9 in that matchup. And, I mean, if you can't score goals, you can't win games. I mean, I feel like that's with any sport. But soccer, you just have to keep getting balls close to that net. That way you can just give yourself an opportunity. But, yeah, like you were saying, as Maverick fans, we are still waiting for our first home soccer win by both men's and women. So getting a little bit antsy here. Hopefully they'll be able to, keep competing and finally snatch that elusive win at home. And that's going to be, for the women's team, it's going to be at the end of the month, September 21st.
Yeah, they have some time off here. They were playing fast and furious, maybe 2 games every weekend, and now they have a little bit of a break here. Again, they lost that one on Friday night against Ball State. That was here at Caniglia before hitting the road to Ames where they played Iowa State. They would drop that one 1-0 as well. Jack, what are the telling things in the stats? Yeah,
to Ethan's point, you look at shots on goal. Iowa State outshoots Omaha 26-8. Outshot them in the first half 14-5, 12-3 in the second half. So it sounds like, or by reading the statistics, that the ball was in Omaha's half a lot of the game.
Jack M., do you have anything on the Iowa State match? As Omaha, do you take that away as a positive considering they took a Big 12 team 1-0, or do you still say a loss is a loss?
I say a loss is a loss. I think if you read the statistics, obviously it was more of an offensive game for Iowa State, so I just feel like we just need to do a better job of evening the playing game and really not relying on our defense for mostly the entire match in this one.
Yeah, I was looking at those stats as well. As a really telling one, Iowa State had 12 corner kicks. Omaha had 0 corner kicks. You're not going to score a whole lot if you don't get a corner kick. You don't have the ball in your half, as Jack Delperdang mentioned.
Especially with the magic that we've had on corner kicks for our women's team. I forget what game that was.
It was Northern Iowa. It's the only match they've won so far this season. But
yeah, so, I mean, that corner kick.
Scored directly off it.
Yeah. Just nobody touched it. It just went right in. So
it's a phenomenal calculated shot, as we were mentioning last week.
Love it.
Omaha then is on the road this weekend. As Sunday, they face off against Oklahoma State. That's down in Stillwater before coming home next weekend where they will face Missouri State. That's a Saturday kickoff, Saturday night at 7 p.m. That's against Missouri State. You can hear that on MavRadio.fm. Shifting gears over to men's soccer. They had 2 home matches over the course of the extended weekend. They had one on Friday, one last night. Again, they go 0-2. They had a little bit more, or they went 0-1. They tied on Friday. A little bit more offensive production. Ethan, you were on campus during that Columbia match. What was your big takeaway from that one?
Well, I mean, listen to that call by Owen Goberson as I'm back here producing. The one name I kept hearing over and over again is Diego Gutierrez. I think he's really starting to hit stride. I really think he's starting to really feel himself on the pitch. They were really up 1-0 in that game against Columbia until quite late. As I'm looking here, the goal scored by Columbia was in the 78th minute, so they almost went the entire match without giving up a goal. I really just think as we're looking here, I mean, Omaha outshot Columbia 20-10. They got great opportunities. I mean, the men's soccer team has been getting good opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net, but it just hasn't been falling. There's not, I mean, I feel like we keep going back to this time and time again with the men's soccer team is they have such talent on the pitch that they should be able to compete and, potentially beat anybody that they go up against with such high expectations this year, and it's just not happening. They're not rolling over, they're not just giving up, but you definitely want to see them compete a little bit harder as we move into this season. And I think once they get that first win under their belt, they'll definitely be able to just calm down a little bit. The pressure will be off their backs, and then hopefully they can just hit stride, full steam ahead, moving into Summit League play. But, for right now, I'm thinking that, the hype train on the Omaha men's soccer team might have been a little bit overhyped, but definitely going to be supportive, definitely going to cheer them on as they keep moving through their season and the rest of the way.
Delperdang, we mentioned that they had a really rough road trip last weekend, going 0-5 in 2 matches against Cal and St. Mary's. Is there any value to coming home? And while they did lead for most of the match, like Ethan said, is there any value to getting a draw just to say, hey, we didn't lose?
I mean, well, I think it was great, obviously, to get your first goal of the year. Obviously, losing 5-0 combined in California, and then they had also lost 1-0 to UCLA here at Caniglia Field. That was an exhibition, but getting that first goal out of the way was a good step in the right direction. I thought maybe they could have capitalized on the Columbia red card late in the match, but they were unable to do so. I think getting a win will be very important for men's soccer as we move forward.
McMonigal, we saw Omaha and Columbia Friday night. Last night, Omaha UNLV. I believe you did the write-up for last night's game. As you were looking through the stat sheet, pouring over the stat sheet, what stood out to you in Omaha's 3-1 loss to University of Nevada, Las Vegas last night?
The thing that stuck out to me was UNLV. What UNO hasn't done a very good job of is get off to a quick start. 2 goals in the first 30 minutes really set the tone. The Rebels really set the tone with those 2 strikes, and it was just difficult for UNO to come back and score. Once they did score, they made things interesting. The 2-1 match, and then right again next minute later, UNLV nets one again. So I just think getting off to a quick start is what the Mavs need to improve, and maybe with getting off to quick starts, that'll help them be successful in one of these matches coming up.
We should plug that on MavRadio.fm's website, you can find write-ups of every single home sport that we cover on MavRadio.fm. So after every home volleyball match, home soccer match, you can catch a write-up of the game as Jack McMonigal took care of that for us last night. You can read that. That's up. You can check it out on our social media as well, MavRadio UNO. But it was really well written, Jack McMonigal. We got to kiss up, make sure he stays here because last time I was late. But anyway, Omaha, the road doesn't get any easier as this weekend they welcome in a Michigan team that was receiving votes, as well as next Monday they play the Dodge Street Derby against a good Creighton team, and that happens to be at Morrison this year. Boy, Omaha's still looking for that first match. Just a really tough non-conference schedule this year. Ethan, where do you circle as maybe an opportunity for Omaha to get that first win?
I'm going to go all the way. We're going to have to go all the way to, what was that? Just pulled it up. September 27th against the Matadors.
CSUN?
Yes, CSUN. That's really, the Mavericks definitely, we're going to say hopefully will compete against Michigan. With that Dodge Street Derby, there always seems to be a little bit more of, fire in the guys' bellies, wanting to be a crosstown, I guess you could call them rival, in Creighton. And then Air Force, they're ranked number 25th. So if they really can't get started early in all 3 of those games, I would definitely put them in the loss column. Not saying that they're going to lose, but, as so far this season has shown, they really haven't got off to quick starts like McGonigal was saying. But, I'm going to have to go all the way down to September 27th against CSUN. the Matadors.
Cal State something. I don't know what the N is.
Cal
Do you happen to know?
Northridge.
Northridge.
Okay.
To Ethan's point, those 3 games against Michigan, Creighton, and then Air Force ranked on the road. Those are going to be 3 tough matches. And then they play
a crazy tough stretch.
Yeah.
In the middle of non-conference play.
And then they play CSUN and then Missouri State. Hopefully they can take those 2 and then get some momentum going into Summit League play.
Again, yeah, Omaha's goal isn't to go undefeated this year. They just need to win Summit League tournaments so they can get back to the NCAA tournament, a place they were in 2017. And that, I think, this is a roster that we saw is talented enough to do that. We've been saying that all year.
Mm-hmm.
So, McMonigal, to that point, what do you think that Omaha's mindset is now? Just say, hey, we're working on things. We're progressing. We obviously got 2 goals this weekend. We just need to get better by conference play. Or do you think like they're pretty frustrated with themselves as they have this really tough stretch ahead of them?
I mean, I say a loss. I mean, every loss. I mean, you'll have a bit of frustrations, but I think the Mavs, they know the schedule they're playing, so I think it's just get better each and every day and every game. And 2 Power Fives, 2 conference teams, tough road games. So I know the Mavs, they've had their hands full in this non-conference, but I think it's working to get better so that they can dominate in the Summit League, because this Summit League competition is nothing to a little compared to what they're seeing in the non-conference play.
Next match for Omaha will be Friday night against Michigan. That's here at Caniglia, so you can hear that one on MavRadio.fm. I believe that one starts at 7. Owen Godberson and Jack Hoover on the call. And by the way, if you're looking for more competent soccer talk, we have a show dedicated just to Omaha soccer. That's Fridays at 1 o'clock with the voice of Omaha soccer, Owen Godberson and Jack Hoover. That's a really good show. They talk about not just Omaha soccer, but they talk all things soccer. That's Fridays 1 to 2. So that's a fun show as well. Guys, anything else on Omaha Athletics? Still waiting for that Omaha non-conference basketball to drop. We're about a month away from hockey. We know women's basketball starting, I believe, beginning of November.
Just to Jack's last point, I think obviously a loss is a loss, but hopefully learning something from each of these matches and getting better and keep practicing hard, and hopefully when Summit League play comes around, you've learned enough from those matches and you're better because of them that you can get some wins.
I will say it was good to see Gutierrez get that goal on Friday night.
Yeah,
I said before the season started, probably Omaha's best player, and or at least most exciting player is what Owen told me. And to see him finally get one and get Omaha's first of the year was kind of a big moment for them. But anyway, we're going to come back. We're going to talk football. Crazy weekend. I believe we'll start with college football. As wild weekend at LSU. Joe Burrow throwing the ball over the place. And we got Michigan almost losing to Army. And all of a sudden USC is back. And it's just crazy weekend in college football. So we'll get to that in just a sec. This is First Warning on MavRadio.fm.
And welcome back to First Warning here on MavRadio.fm. Ben Helwig has stepped out with a work commitment. Gonna go get trained on something. I remember him telling me yesterday. Not 100% sure what. Jack McMonigal, Jack Delperdang here. Ethan Wolbach. We're moving into college football, boys. Football's back. We're in the full swing of things now as we are going to be entering week 3 of college football play. Looking at the past weekend, what really sticks out to you guys as a shocker, or what really did just jump off the page for you? We'll go Delperdang first.
I didn't really watch any of the game because I was at the Iowa game, but once I got out of there, seeing that Michigan, they were in overtime at that point against Army, and then it ended up going to double overtime. Just crazy. That would have been probably the most epic loss for Michigan since the home loss to Appalachian State. One thing I guess they can take away from it is they won, so they're still 2-0.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma last year actually went to double overtime at home against Army.
Army's a really tough team. It doesn't.
Yep.
You know what they're going to run. They're going to run the option, the triple option, or they're going to run it right down your throat. So
that's tough to prepare for.
It really is.
In a week. Yeah.
The physicality of that team, week in and week out. Those guys are no joke. Even though they only might pass it, a handful of times, 4 or 5 times a game. So, McGonigal, what did you take away from that Michigan-Army game?
I think, Army coming into the big house and, really giving Michigan all they got. But this is a familiar thing we've seen from Army. If you remember from a year ago, they went down to Oklahoma and forced them to overtime, and Oklahoma ended up making the college football playoffs. So maybe this is finally good luck for Michigan, or Michigan's not as good as number 7 in the nation is what the AP Top 25 thought.
Mm-hmm.
They still have big quarterback issues. I mean, Shea Patterson, he was not very good, on his back constantly. Do they go to Dylan McCaffrey or stick with the fifth-year senior? I'm not sure.
I think Harbaugh is going to just tread lightly with that. I mean, you want to trust Patterson with him being a fifth-year senior. And, of course, you don't want to step on his toes, but you've got to do what's best for your ball club. So there is a chance that they do make that quarterback move. But as of right now, I really think they're going to stick with Patterson. And it might be a quarterback issue, but if he is on his back all game long, I think that might be a little bit more of a line issue. If you're letting, guys in play after play after play, and, he's really not a mobile quarterback. He's kind of more of a pocket passer guy. So he's not, the typical dual threat quarterback that we're seeing in college football, like a Jalen Hurts, Tua, even we got Kelly Bryant at Mizzou, who was at Clemson. It's a guy.
Even Adrian Martinez, he's pretty mobile, and Trevor Lawrence.
Yep, Trevor Lawrence is who I was thinking. I mean, he's a pretty tall guy at Clemson. I mean, he's probably standing like 6'5", but he's still pretty, quick moving outside the pocket. As we're going down the rest of this lineup from last weekend, I saw number 21, Syracuse, lost big to Maryland. Maryland's averaging 60-some-odd points going through these first 2 weeks. So an offense there that actually switched spots with Syracuse is now ranked 21st in the AP Top 25. What else really sticks out for you guys?
Clemson, they only won 24-10, but I got the sense that game was never in danger.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that one.
They were ahead 17-3 at half. Texas A&M got a late garbage touchdown. Otherwise, Clemson really dominated that game defensively. Trevor Lawrence was a lot better this week than he was the week before. Lynn-J Dixon actually got almost as many carries as Travis Etienne, and he got a lot more yards per rush. And then, obviously, Justin Ross and T. Higgins, you can go to them on the outside for Clemson.
The big outtake from me was what the Oregon Ducks did to the Nevada Wolfpack. They go to AT&T Stadium and lose in a heartbreaker to the Auburn Tigers, and they come out in week 2 against a Nevada team who knocked off a Purdue team in a game-winning field goal, and they made the headlines giving their kicker a scholarship after hitting the game winner, and then they go to Eugene and lose by over 70. So even though Oregon lost that week 1, I think they're still legit with putting up 77 on a Mountain West team, and Justin Herbert throwing for 5 touchdowns for 5 different receivers.
My biggest thing was Wisconsin winning 61-0. Jack Cohn throwing over 300 yards. Holy cow. Did someone say Wisconsin's good? Wow, that's crazy.
Nope, not good. Not good.
They've outscored their opponents 110-0, so that defense obviously is no joke either.
But if you look at who they played,
right.
I mean, come on. USF, Central Michigan, their real big test will be this weekend versus number 10. Oh, next weekend, versus number 10 Michigan, which they've got a bye week on week 3 going into a big matchup.
So does Michigan also.
I never really understand that. I mean, just thinking about, I don't know why, but MLB baseball popped into my head. The Kansas City Royals had a bye or a day off in like their 3rd day of the season out of 162 games. So I really never understand in sports when you schedule a bye week early in the season when your guys are still probably pretty fresh. It might be because you don't want to take a dip in the polls later on in the season. Potentially if somebody with a big upset right below you could jump you in the polls, and then boom, you're out of a BCS bowl. But we're gonna move on to week 3 here. Well, I guess because I'm a Husker fan, I'll talk very, very quickly about just the debacle that happened. That was Husker football on Saturday. Up in Boulder, losing 34-31 to the Colorado Buffaloes in a game that really looked completely lopsided in the first half. The Huskers were up 17-0 going into halftime, and then Colorado just bounced back. I mean, from 17-0 to 34-31, there really wasn't a whole lot that Nebraska could do in that second half. I mean, they had a couple good passes from Martinez, to Maurice Washington on the outside, Wandale Robinson. But in the second half, it was really all Buffaloes. And then going into that overtime, you really didn't know if it was going to swing one way or the other. And then after just some, what Husker fans are calling pretty poor play calling on Scott Frost's part, and their one drive in overtime led to an Armstrong who was only going to attempt his second field goal attempt in his college career, the punter from Nebraska. And I mean, that thing was so far right. I'm pretty sure that I could have kicked it a little bit straighter. It probably wouldn't have got there, but it would have looked a heck of a lot better than what we saw in overtime for the Huskers to lose and go 1-1. A disappointing loss at that. But I digress. Moving on to week 3.
Colorado's big momentum play, a 97-yard flea flicker from their own end zone, really.
Yeah.
But then right after that, I thought Nebraska grabbed momentum back with the Maurice Washington swing pass that he takes to the house.
Yeah.
But then put the defense right back out there, and they allow another huge drive. And I don't know, just wasn't very good for Nebraska. And one other thing was Texas and LSU. I mean, what a game to close out the night. Joe Burrow and Sam Ehlinger slinging the ball all around the yard.
I called that one, though. I don't think Texas will win that.
Yep, we both called LSU. Ben called Texas. I remember my key to the game was LSU containing Sam Ehlinger's legs. Well, they did a pretty good job of that, only 19 carries for 60 yards, but he also threw for 404 touchdowns. And LSU, they're running like a spread offense or something, they said during the game, inspired by the Saints. Apparently they went down there in the offseason, and so Joe Burrow is their Drew Brees, and he's got a plethora of weapons out there. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Terrace Marshall, all over 100 yards receiving. Jamar Chase was the one who really impressed me, although Jefferson did have the 3 touchdowns.
All right, let's move on to week 3. What games are you looking for? What games are you looking to watch? I mean, there was really not very many big matchups.
Cy-Hawk.
Oh, yeah, the Cy-Hawk. You know, if I wanted to see a dumpster fire, I'd just go out behind a building somewhere in downtown Omaha. But go ahead, Jack. Take it away on that.
All right. Hawkeyes favored by 2 at this moment, coming off a dominant win against Rutgers. Nate Stanley looking really good again. Iowa doing it with their wide receivers, as I said last week. No receptions by an Iowa tight end this past week against Rutgers, which is crazy when you think about last year. They completely ran their offense through T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant, both in the NFL. Interested to see how Iowa State looks. They'll obviously have the crowd behind them, and they'll have game day there. They really struggled against UNI the week before, and
Yep.
I want to see how Brock Purdy bounces back and what he will do in this big matchup. You know, usually the winner of this game goes on to win 8-9 games, and then the loser ends up only around 5 or 6. So I think both teams are pretty good. Should be a good matchup Saturday afternoon.
Is there any way I can get a draw out of that game? Neither team wins. Is there? I don't know. We had our first tie in the NFL, but we'll get to that later. McGonigal, what do you have for us college football-wise?
I'm interested to see what 21st ranked Maryland, if they can keep up with what they've been doing, or if the train will start to slow down.
Okay.
They have their first road game this weekend. They go to the City of Brotherly Love in Philadelphia to take on the Temple Owls. So I just think maybe Maryland, they're living up to their hype that no one really expected. So if they can keep, putting up, they're averaging 71 points a ball game right now, which is something you thought you'd see from their basketball team. But just Maryland, see if they can keep putting up the high numbers, or it's going to start to slow down this Saturday in Philly.
Well, and as you're looking, I'm looking here at Temple's schedule. They only have one game versus Bucknell. They won 56-12. So I really think that, that Temple squad, they put up 56 points. Take it with a grain of salt as it is against, an unproven opponent in Bucknell. But Maryland, we're really seeing it across the Big Ten. I mean, for a conference that's really been, with touted defenses and a whole lot of, low scoring, smash mouth football, we're seeing some high scores. Out of Maryland week 1 and week 2, Wisconsin week 1 and week 2, Ohio State always finds ways to score just repeatedly, drive after drive. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if Maryland can keep up this scoring, this onslaught of scoring, they could really be, a dark horse in the Big Ten.
Yeah, you had mentioned that last week about the scoring, and obviously you still have Iowa and Wisconsin who are going to play smash mouth football. They're going to try to run it down your throats, but even then, Jack Cohn and Nate Stanley have really impressed through 2 weeks. Both have great wide receivers for Wisconsin. Quintez Cephas back. I believe he missed all of last year, and then Iowa has Amir Smith-Marset on the outside, but then the other teams, they really throw it around. Maryland, Penn State, Ohio State, they all have great quarterbacks and great wide receivers.
Yeah, 100% I agree with that one. I guess as I'm looking at this sheet, nothing too big is jumping out. I guess I might tune in to the Iowa State game. No, I'm going to the Nebraska game, 7 o'clock, Memorial Stadium, Northern Illinois versus Nebraska. Northern Illinois has came to Nebraska the past 2 seasons. They're sitting at 1-1. They did compete with number 13, Utah last week. So this Northern Illinois Husky team is nothing just to scoff at. I don't think Nebraska can scoff at any opponent after really only playing, I'm going to say, 3/4 of football against Colorado. So that'll be interesting to watch. The first night game of the season for Nebraska, there just seems to be a little bit more excitement, a little bit more buzz in that stadium. I think it gives people, an entire day to get ready for that game versus waking up at 7 a.m., starting drinking, to get to the stadium by 11. So let me look at the line for that one as we go back here.
While you're doing that, North Carolina plays at Wake on Friday, and I saw this weekend that's actually an out-of-conference matchup, even though they're both in the ACC, because Wake Forest was actually independent a few years back, and they went out of the conference for a year, and they actually scheduled that matchup with North Carolina. So North Carolina Wake on Friday.
A Friday night football game.
An ACC game, but a non-conference game, even though both teams are in the ACC.
And that is, you really rarely see that. That's actually the first time I've ever heard of something like that happening. As I'm looking here, Nebraska's still a 14-point favorite against Northern Illinois. Kind of shocking, to say the least. But then again, we saw Vegas make a lot of money on that first game against South Alabama, putting Nebraska as a 36.5-point favorite. So, trust the lines as you will. 14. A 14-point win would, in my books, be considered a blowout for Husker football. We've yet to see them blow out an opponent in what seems to be years. Really just never had an offense and a defense that could just, really sustain a blowout score. But it'll be interesting, with Maurice Washington on the field for Adrian Martinez. We seem to really move east to west a lot across the field. You never really see a whole lot of north-south. I think Scott Frost definitely needs to change that. We need to really just start trusting Spielman and Stoll. I saw Stoll cut the mullet, so that could be either good or bad for the Huskers. I know that was a huge talking point every media day, watching Jack Stoll come out with that just filthy mullet, something that I would one day love to rock. But, for a state that really bleeds Husker red, after Saturday's loss, we were really just sitting there and, our own blood. We were just shocked and just, really thrown back for a team and a season that many Nebraska fans thought could be, this is it. This is the turning point of Husker football again. But again, we're only in year 2. Big things could come out of the Huskers still this season, working into next season, but you never know. Who else has got something?
One thing I think Nebraska could try to do this week that they have done haven't done the past 2 weeks is run Adrian Martinez less. He leads Nebraska in rushing attempts by 9. I really thought coming into the year they would try to utilize Dedrick Mills and Maurice Washington out of the backfield a lot more. Those two are Nebraska's leading rushers, but have less carries than Martinez. I think if they continue to do this, Martinez will wear down as the year progresses, and as you get into Big Ten play, you'll want his legs fresh. I think they'll try to use him in the running game less, at least this week against Northern Illinois.
Well, I definitely heard Scott Frost say that when Adrian Martinez runs the ball, he told Martinez, when you're running that ball, run it like an I-back. Run it like I used to do at Nebraska. I mean, you see Scott Frost highlights tapes from, the late 90s where he's just running and, gut punching people as he's running through the line. And he really was. I mean, Scott Frost alone was smash mouth football. Holy smokes, it's early here on UNO's campus. But, yeah, I mean, you would definitely like to see them use him less in the run game. But last year, that was really one of his keys to success, was his ability to be a dual threat on the ground and in the air. But, yeah, we'll look to see if he can stay healthy. So far, he's looked pretty healthy. Just some minor issues that he needs to tweak before we get into Big Ten play. But McGonigal, I see you looking there. Who do you got up on your laptop right now?
The upset that maybe could potentially be an upset is the Florida Gators travel to Lexington, Kentucky Saturday night. The Gators, a team that have won the last 14 times in Lexington, and I think maybe that they could be on an upset watch. You just haven't seen the Gators reach their full potential yet, and with number 9 coming to town and Kentucky at 2-0 and a night game, I think Lexington will be rocking. And the Wildcats have played 2 MAC teams, so they haven't seen some heated competition yet until the Gators Saturday. So I think maybe if we're looking at upsets, number 9 Florida could be one of those teams to watch out for.
The thing that's crazy with that game is last year Kentucky beat Florida, but that was like the first time they had beat them in like over 20 years, I think. I mean,
Okay.
You had said they won that many in Lexington. I imagine they had won that many or more in Gainesville also. That could be a trendy upset pick. Kentucky, they looked good in their first 2 games.
When you always see the SEC really competitive all across the board really in these first couple of weeks, and then you start seeing the top of the pack separate in an Alabama, an Auburn, a Georgia. So, I mean, Florida in the past, I'm thinking just within the last 5 years, has not been one of those teams come the end of the SEC season that is competitive. But as we're looking now, I mean, ranked top 10 in the SEC to start the year, or in college football to start the year out of the SEC. So I really think the Gators have something to prove. Not to discredit Kentucky being in that SEC as well. Definitely produced an amazing running back last year, had an amazing season. But I think the Gators might be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder this year. Really want to prove themselves to not just the SEC, but all of college football when, they are a top Power 5 football team. But, I mean, it's college football. On any given day, anybody can beat anybody. I heard that all throughout my childhood playing sports. You hear, coaches tell their players pretty much at any level that, when you get in between those white lines that, it's you versus the other team. Whatever else has happened throughout the season doesn't matter. So, I would like to see that. I would like to see a Wildcat upset over the Florida Gators. But you just never know. You never know until the whistle blows.
I do think the SEC East is a 2-horse race, even if Kentucky wins that game. You have Florida and then Georgia. I do think Georgia wins. They do also have the easier schedule. They get Florida at home, and they go to Auburn. But then Florida, they go to LSU, and they welcome Auburn home. So obviously Florida has the tougher schedule.
And Georgia at home.
Yeah. I do think Georgia is more talented also, and I think that's what it comes down to.
Jack, you got anything?
Yeah, another upset I think to watch maybe could be out west in Provo, Utah, the USC Trojans. Some think USC's back, some thinks they're getting to where they used to be, and they go to a BYU Cougars team who miraculously defeated the Tennessee Volunteers last Saturday. So maybe watch out for USC BYU. That game 2:30 on ABC. So maybe you can catch that one right before the Husker game that night. So yeah, I'm just interested to see what the Trojans can do on the road. They've had 2 wins in LA, and I think BYU coming off a win like that, I think they'll be fired up to go up against at home a ranked Pac-12 opponent.
And I always love to hear this. You know, we're talking about teams that had early success in the 2000s and, you know, even back in the 90s. You always hear Texas is back, USC's back, Nebraska's back. You know, I love hearing that, but, you know, at the same time, just because you don't have success doesn't mean you're gone. You know, the Huskers haven't had as well or as good a success as, you know, back in the 90s, but yet still hold that sellout streak. Texas has not had as much success, but yet they still have their own network in the Longhorn Network. So, your programs are still having success in some aspects. You know, not every year is it like Alabama and Clemson where you come out expecting to win the national championship. You know, every player says that, but really, you know, that's for some teams it's a far-fetched goal. But it'll be interesting because USC, correct me if I'm wrong, is going with their second-string quarterback after their
JT Daniels.
After he tore his ACL. So it'll be interesting to see if he can step up big. And that would be, as I'm just saying, like we all know who it is. Who are we looking at here? Kedon Slovis?
I don't know. Something
freshman.
Like that.
So, you know, USC's season is riding on a freshman here.
Good numbers against Stanford. Threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so, you know, he's not your stereotypical freshman, you know, deer in a headlights looking during your very first, you know, start, especially against a good Stanford team that, again, in the past has, you know, produced some really good talent. But that would be something to watch. You know, USC, as they're slowly starting to creep back into this top 25, looking to really compete in what really the Pac-12 is in Oregon, Washington. I guess Utah State's in there too. Is Utah State Pac-12? Yeah. No, Utah. Utah in general.
Utah State's
Mountain West, yeah. But the Pac-12 has not been, you know, they've had good teams, top 25 teams, but people have really just said that, it's Pac-12 football. Once they play, you know, a really strong, touted defense, they'll just crumble because the Pac-12 in the past has been completely offensive. So it'll be interesting to see if BYU can strike some magic again, like they did in Tallahassee.
I think most of the Pac-12 criticism.
Knoxville.
I think most of the Pac-12 criticism comes from they haven't made the college football playoff since the first year, and
Washington made it a few years ago.
Okay,
but did they
I was wrong.
Make it? Did they?
They lost to Alabama.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Same like Notre Dame. When Notre Dame makes it to the college football playoff, and then they get smoked, everyone's like, "Well, they didn't look like they should have been there in the first place." So.
Yeah, Oregon made it the first year, I believe.
And then they got smoked by
Ohio State.
They beat Florida State.
And then they got smoked by
Ohio State
in the championship.
That was a Mariota-Winston matchup, wasn't that?
Winston, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great game.
The one where he just fumbled out of nowhere on that one play.
Slipped on the ground.
Yeah. Just thinking about, you know, past college football games that really just make you want to tune in. Every year we're thinking, all right, Is it going to be Clemson, Alabama again? Is it going to be Alabama, Georgia? Somehow there always seems to be an Alabama in there.
You try to think of Heisman winners coming into this year, not Tua or Trevor.
Yeah, so, I mean, yes, there's powerhouses at the top of the NCAA. Obviously, there always will be. I don't think Alabama's ever going to be unsuccessful until Saban leaves. But there's definitely some dark horses out there that could make a run and potentially, put a wrinkle in this college football playoff.
Yeah, I think maybe Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers, maybe they get their first crack at the college football playoff if they can if they can make their way through that SEC West whenever that Bama LSU game is. I'm sure that'll be a big headline. Hopefully as big as it was back in 2011, number 1 versus number 2, but I think the game of the century will be hard to top.
Yeah. Yeah, LSU gets Florida, Auburn, and Texas A&M all at home, so a favorable schedule there. They do go to Tuscaloosa. That'll be the really big tough matchup if this spread offense can really work in the SEC. You never know. Does Texas just have a really bad defense? LSU did look really good, but you never know.
You don't. You just don't. And I think that might wrap up our college football talk for this week. If anybody has any last words, say them now or forever hold your peace.
I don't have anything.
Yeah,
really.
I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about.
Nothing. Perfect. So then we'll move on. After the break, we'll move on to NFL football. Week 1 in the books. Some shocking scores, some blowouts, a Brady masterpiece that everyone expects going into every year. But, yeah, we'll talk NFL football next. Stick with us here. Ethan Wolbach, Jack McGonigal, Jack Delperdang, here with First Warning Radio on MavRadio.fm. And welcome back to First Warning. I'm Ethan Wolbach. Ben Helwig has stepped out on us, getting to work before a busy day for him. Sitting to my left, we have Jack Delperdang and Jack McGonigal. Alrighty, guys, we've talked Omaha athletics. We've talked college football. We're moving on to NFL football. Week 1 in the books. McGonigal, if you want to start us off here, what were your big takeaways from Week 1?
Big takeaway from Week 1 was how the Kansas City Chiefs, their lightning strike offense early on to the Pat Mahomes and Sammy Watkins game, and then also in Jacksonville, Nick Foles goes down, Tyreek Hill goes down, Mahomes goes down for a play.
Yeah.
And just, a lot of fantasy owners a little worried about what happened in Jacksonville, and a lot of just fans in general couldn't even watch the fourth quarter due to a power outage in Jacksonville, so they were stuck watching Baker Mayfield throw interceptions left and right. And then also in Jacksonville, stepping up was former Washington State quarterback Gardner Minshew. Goes down, throws 22 of 25, and really shows the Chiefs what he's about, and maybe fantasy owners keep an eye out for him, and because it sounds like Foles broke his collarbone. I think. Yeah, so
he'll be out 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean he's gonna have to step up for Jacksonville if they want to be competitive in that AFC South race. Now things have opened up a little bit down there with Andrew Luck gone, so a lot of people are a little bit down on the Colts now. So I think if Minshew can lead the Jags, I think it's a 3-team race. I think anybody actually in that division has an equal shot. Tennessee with Mariota and Derrick Henry, Houston with Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, and then the Jags with Leonard Fournette and then Minshew. Leonard Fournette not very present on Sunday, so hopefully he turns it on as we move forward.
D.D. Westbrook looked really good for the Jags in that game also. Even if you don't have Patrick Mahomes in fantasy, as long as he stays healthy and you have his weapons, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was playing a guy in fantasy that had Sammy Watkins. Thinking to myself, when Tyreek Hill goes down, I take a peek. This guy didn't even start Sammy Watkins. He could have blown me out of the water if he'd have started Sammy Watkins.
Like what,
with
46 fantasy points?
Yeah,
like
I mean, it was like 30 in the first half. But as I'm looking through the Week 1 score sheet here, I'm seeing a lot of close games. You know, we have 17-16, 32-27, 30-27. But then you look at what happened in Miami, and I know my buddy Avery's going to hate me talking about this. Big Fins fan, but my gosh, for a running back, Lamar Jackson, I mean, if you heard his quote, you know, he said, you know, what do you have, 5 touchdowns?
5 TDs.
He said, you know, not bad for a running back. But a 59-10 blowout at Miami week 1, Lamar Jackson haters really kind of silenced them for this, at least week 1. And then you saw reports coming out of Miami that immediately following that game, Dolphin players were in contact with their agents saying, get me out of Miami. I want to trade. Nothing official from reps within the Dolphins organization. Obviously, there hasn't been any trade requests submitted, but definitely some upset players down in Miami. What would you guys take away from Miami? I mean, you're getting blown out at home, and then players immediately saying, I want out.
You know, I think you're only a week in, and I mean, I think you give it more time. I know week 1 looked bad, but I think I don't think it can get much worse than what we saw in week 1. So I think the Dolphins players just got to give, because I saw when I was watching the game on TV, there was a stat that said I think 65 to 70% of the guys on this team's staff, on this team's roster, weren't on the team's roster last year. So I just think, it's unbelievable. I just think you just got to give this team a chance, this new head coach a chance before you're wanting out of Miami. And I think, it doesn't look good now, but I don't think it can get much worse than what we saw in South Beach week 1.
It was already crazy because in the press conference, their coach was asked, basically, are you guys tanking already?
I was just going to ask you that. Are they tanking for Tua?
And it's like, geez, lose 59-10 week 1, and then you get asked if you're tanking. Hard to tell when you lose by that much if you're tanking or if your roster just isn't very good. No chemistry, as you mentioned. So many new guys.
Got a tough one next week.
Yeah, Tom Brady. Yeah.
As we're on that topic,
Tom Brady plus AB now.
We saw the New England win 33-3. While watching that game, New England's schedule showed up on a graphic. And let me just tell you that it is an absolute joke, weeks 1 through 6. You have the Steelers, who, all right, people thought a playoff team, but got blown out. You go Dolphins, Jets, Bills. Redskins looked okay. Then you have Giants, Jets, and Browns. You really don't face a playoff team until over halfway through the season almost.
Week 9.
Until you get what? To the Eagles?
Yeah.
Baltimore could be tough there.
Baltimore is going to be the one game that I really think
they'll be 7-0 going into Baltimore.
Will be real, and that'll be their real first test. But I mean, come on, you're handing Brady the AFC top spot if you're the NFL, and I mean, it's just with them adding Antonio Brown and seeing that offense,
it's just another weapon.
It is another weapon, and there's really, how are you going to stop it? If you can't stop it, it's going to be kind of like the Monday night showdown we had with the Chiefs and the Rams. If you can't stop it, you just hope to outscore it. And that's what teams are going to have to do against Brady because, you're not going to be able to stop him. You have I guess it was proven in that game, 3 good running backs. Sony Michel, James White, and then Rex Burkhead was actually the leading rusher with 44 yards. Think about that. 33 points and only 44 yards was the leading rusher. But, I mean, come on. You're really going to give Brady 6-0 to start the year, potentially 7-0. Say Lamar Jackson cools down between weeks 2 and 6 when they finally go and play him. So, I mean, as a Chiefs fan, it's just frustrating to see. Brady, what is he now?
42, I think.
Yeah, 40. I was going to say 42, 43. Really just having a cakewalk walking through.
He already has so many weapons. I mean, you mentioned Philip Dorsett, but you have Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon, and then you're going to add Antonio Brown, who if they can get him to become a selfless player, he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league, and that's just another weapon for Tom Brady.
And yeah, you're on the topic of schedules. I was just running through this Chiefs schedule quick. I mean, it's completely different than what you see from the Patriots. They got to go to Chicago. They got welcome home the Vikings, welcome home the Packers, welcome home the Ravens. Go to Oakland next week. So I just think
that Oakland game scares me.
Oh,
it really does.
I think so.
After looking at that offense with Josh Jacobs, I mean Derek Carr,
defense looked great last
Tyrell
night.
Williams looked like he could handle the number one load after Antonio Brown was released. Delaney Waller, I think it was, is their tight end. He looked pretty good.
No, I mean, for a team that people thought would be, oh, you're in shambles, you just lost your number one wide receiver. I mean, to quote Jerry Jones of the Cowboys, AB who? When he was saying Zeke who when he was in that contract dispute. But yeah, I mean, the schedule for a team that made it to the AFC Championship game, really people are saying is the real test for, Brady to make it to another Super Bowl would be Patrick Mahomes and this highly coveted offense. We have a pretty tough schedule. I mean, Raiders, Ravens, the Lions, Matthew Stafford versus the Cardinals looks like a quarterback that is playing at a level to where he's paid for being the highest paid quarterback.
Definitely could be a 1-0 team right now.
So then versus the Colts, and then you go to the Texans, who lost a heartbreaker of a game last night. We'll get to that in a moment. And then you go Broncos, then you go Packers, Vikings, back-to-back weeks. You never know with Aaron Rodgers, and then the Vikings look good with Kirk Cousins.
Right there.
It's really going to be tough. I'm now looking at the schedule. I'm now seeing why people didn't put Kansas City in the Super Bowl this year. Compared to the schedule, I mean, the cakewalk that, Belichick and Brady have. But if anybody can get it done, it's definitely going to be Patrick Mahomes, where they're saying there is a possibility he can throw over 50 touchdown passes again this year. And you think if he throws over 50, if he has over 100 touchdowns in 2 seasons, and in his first season as a rookie, he had 0. Can you pay this man $200 million? Can you make him the highest paid quarterback in all of the NFL?
They were talking about how much Dak owed, or is going to be owed after his great performance, and
yeah, shred the Giants defense.
Mahomes is going to blow that out of the water. He's just unbelievable. And even just in the division, you think about what the Patriots have. They have the Dolphins, the Jets, and who else is in their division? There's one other team.
Buffalo,
yeah.
Buffalo, yeah.
3 not very good teams. They're probably going to go 6-0 in that schedule.
Yeah.
And then you have the Chiefs, who have the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos.
Yeah, 2 completely different
divisions. The Chargers should be pretty good. Rivers.
It always seems to be a 2-horse race in that division.
Yeah.
It always has been between the Chiefs and the Chargers. But the Raiders look good. The Raiders look strong. So it'll be interesting to see, is he going to turn into 3 out of the 4 teams there could potentially fight for a playoff spot? Yeah. I mean, we've seen it in the past. Chiefs took the division. Chargers got the wild card. I mean, it could be to where it's coming down to the last couple weeks of the season, and you win and you're in. Especially if you're the Raiders. Could be the Chiefs potentially with how tough their season is. But it's going to be hard to stop that offense. Even with Tyreek Hill being out, they said he will stay off that injured reserve list. That means he'll be able to come back. They're hoping within the next 4 weeks. Kind of a similar issue that Nick Foles had. It looks kind of more like a clavicle, a collarbone. Possibly dislocated his shoulder a little bit. So for a guy they just paid a lot of money in Tyreek Hill, I think they're smart to definitely sit him for a little bit, let him get completely healthy. But then again, Sammy Watkins, just wow. He had, I think it was 4 touchdowns all of last year.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns all of last year. He had 3 in game 1, 198 yards. Put the ball in that man's hands a lot more.
I think they will now without Tyreek.
100%. And then with Travis Kelce coming off of ankle surgery, not huge ankle surgery, but surgery nonetheless. He looked good. Mahomes tried his no-look pass and chucked it about 50 yards above Kelce when he was wide open, nobody in the end zone. So that hurt me in fantasy. That was heartbreaking. But the Chiefs got the win nonetheless. as we're moving through, we'll move away from the AFC just a little bit. Let's switch gears to the NFC. We definitely started, what was that, Thursday night with the
Bears and Packers. Super low-scoring game.
That's something that astonished me, especially with people believing in Trubisky in Chicago. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers on any given day can put up huge numbers. So what did you guys take away from that Thursday night Game 1 matchup of the NFL?
I think a lot of people were expecting Rodgers, come out and throw the ball, which, he did, but, only one TD for Green Bay, and I just think it was a big defensive matchup, and the Packers' defense had always been, a little questionable, and I think they really stepped up against a good, solid Bears offensive core on Thursday night in front of the bright lights in Chicago to open up the season. So I think a lot of people were really surprised about Green Bay's defense and how they came out and just shut down the Bears from beginning of the whistle to the final whistle. So I'm excited to see what Green Bay's defense has them. And also new head coach for Green Bay, no Mike McCarthy anymore. So I just think it's a new, different Packers team, and I think there's a lot to be excited for up in Wisconsin.
A lot of people were saying coming into the game that Trubisky would have to have a lot better year because they couldn't see the Bears' defense sustaining how good they were last year. Obviously, the Bears' defense was by far first, the most turnovers in the league a season ago, and you never know if they can do that. The Vikings had a great defense in 2017, and then they took a step back last year. You never know with elite defenses. Same with Jacksonville. They weren't as good last year. Trubisky's going to have to take a step forward this year, I think, if the Bears want to compete for a Super Bowl. And one other thing, that was really the only low-scoring game of the week. On Friday morning, you heard everyone saying players didn't play in preseason. Is this a result of that? Well, a lot of other teams didn't play their starters in preseason also. And there were a lot of high-scoring games throughout the league this week.
Yeah, and I'm looking here.
Baltimore 59, Tennessee 43, Philadelphia and the Rams both over 30, Kansas City 40.
Yeah.
I was really looking at that Eagles-Redskins. There was a lot of, I guess you wouldn't call it controversy, but some talk up in Washington, D.C. about do you start Case Keenum or do you start Dwayne Haskins? A quarterback that showed great success in college at Ohio State, but they ultimately chose Case Keenum. And he did good. He threw it, 44 times. He was 30 of 44, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. But a healthy Wentz works wonders. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and put that on your stat sheet because Carson Wentz was just impressive. Deshaun Jackson looks like the Deshaun Jackson of old. He looked like he never missed a step. If he's available in your fantasy league, I definitely pick him up with the pass. Nick Foles was good. He had a good relationship with Jackson, but I think Wentz and Jackson, and then who else am I thinking?
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz, but other wide receiver in Philly.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey. I think that the Eagles could really make a potential run again.
When Carson Wentz has never really had that deep threat like Deshaun Jackson. His deep threat over the last couple of years has been Alshon Jeffrey. And while he was a great receiver with Chicago, he really lost a step in Philadelphia. He's not as quick, not as fast down the field. Now you get that vertical threat with Deshaun Jackson. You still have Zach Ertz. Alshon Jeffrey is a guy. He's going to be in the middle of the field all game long. Mm-hmm. You're going to have him as a safety blanket. Great running back, Darren Sproles. Miles Sanders out of the backfield's a pretty good weapon too. Big year for Carson Wentz, I think, for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Moving on to another game. So for people that drafted fantasy football early and those sad souls that took Andrew Luck and then minutes later he retired.
O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, O.J. Simpson. I'm looking at Jacoby Brissett's stat line here. Only 6 incomplete passes, only 190 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Was really smart with the ball, only took 2 sacks. But really the Colts' entire offense, Marlon Mack.
Yeah.
174
Absolutely.
yards on the ground. In my fantasy draft, he was actually the last running back taken. He was taken right before I was going to take him. I believe it had to have been in like probably the 10th, 11th, 12th round. And he had himself a heck of a day. T.Y. Hilton also had 8 receptions, 87 yards. And then, of course, on the other side, the Chargers without Melvin Gordon, him, pulling a little bit of a Le'Veon Bell move. I'm not playing until I get paid. But they really didn't need him that much. Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson both had 58, 57 yards on the ground. Keenan Allen, 123 yards. And then Austin Eckler, 96. So Eckler was almost their leading rusher and receiver, like we saw with Christian McCaffrey in the Panthers game. So what do you guys think? Switching away from just an individual game, what do you think about these running backs that are you think of McCaffrey, Eckler here, Kamara in New Orleans, these running backs that, yes, they are running backs, but they catch the ball out of the backfield better than most wide receivers can. So are you going to see? Do you think we're going to see a lot more of those kind of dual threat running backs coming out of college being more successful in the NFL versus these smash mouth football? Wow, I need to stop saying that word because it cannot get out of my mouth. Like I'm thinking of Jonathan Taylor up in Wisconsin. Do you think he'd be still successful in the NFL, or are these dual threat running back, wide receiver, really a flex option, going to be more successful?
I think Taylor, to him quickly in the end of the NFL, he's really added pass catching to his game this year out of the backfield. And regarding pass catchers, I would also add Saquon Barkley. But yeah, the era of smash mouth football is gone,
especially in the NFL.
Yep, I do think you need, as you mentioned, McCaffrey, Kamara, Barkley. I think you need a guy at running back with these air raid offenses where you're not having a guy where he's in the game, it's going to be a run. You put in your pass catcher, kind of like in New England, they have Sony Michel runs the ball. You kind of know that he's going to be they're going to run the ball when he's in. James White, they're going to pass it. It adds a little mystery to your offense when you have a guy who can run and catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, I think what Jack said, the smash mouth football, I think it's gone, and now you need guys that can catch, run the ball, and then also, with quarterbacks too, you see, most of the new guys are all dual threat quarterbacks. The top guys in college are dual threat quarterbacks. So I think that dual threat quarterback game is what's really evolving in the NFL. And I think eventually once we see these older guys, I think it'll be all mainly dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, and as we're talking NFL and smash mouth football, I was watching that Raiders-Broncos game last night, and there was flag, I believe it was in the fourth quarter on Oakland for in what college we call targeting, lowering your helmet. And really, it didn't look that bad. It looked like it was more shoulder to the center chest of, I believe it was Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
But then coming down, 2 Raiders players colliding, and that's actually where you saw the injury there. And it was, you see these helmets, Antonio Brown, I hate bringing him up because, what really happened there really just, gets under my skin with how that entire situation was handled. But he was complaining about the new helmets, this and that. Helmets can only do so much. We saw Christian McCaffrey jump over Eric Weddle of the Rams and absolutely get knocked out cold from a knee to the side of the head. The picture from that is just gruesome. He took, a huge gash out of the side of his head, just bloodied down. If you didn't see that on Twitter, just go ahead and search Eric Weddle for just a second. You'll see that picture. And it is kind of graphic, but, these new helmets, they can only do so much. Guys are getting stronger. Guys are more physical. The NFL is definitely trying to look out for their players by, implementing referees from stopping these guys when they do make tackles with the crowns of their helmet. But I really think we need to move away from where every big hit is a penalty. Because there are big hits in football that are legit. They are 100% legal hits. But, seeing a flag every single time there's a big hit, or like last year in the AFC Championship game, the roughing the passer versus Brady, where Chris Jones really didn't even touch him.
Barely hit him with his arm, if anything.
And it was just, sad to see. But I definitely think we need to move away from the whole every big hit is illegal. And if that's the way the NFL is going to go, I think we're going to see a lot of backlash from fans, a lot of backlash from players. I mean, going back to Clay Matthews, Troy Polamalu, those guys would hit hard. Mm-hmm. And Clay Matthews, when he was still in Green Bay there, several of his hits he would get penalties on. And, I definitely remember him coming after a game and saying, what do I have to do to not get penalized every time I sack a quarterback?
Well, that was the one against the Vikings week 2 where they called roughing the passer against Kirk Cousins on a play where there was an interception by Green Bay that would have iced the game.
Yep.
Minnesota goes down, scores a touchdown, gets the 2-point conversion, game ends in a tie.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I hate. Ties in football. We saw one between the Cardinals and the Lions, and Kyler Murray's first NFL start. McMonigal scrolling down there looking at the stat sheet. We saw that game end 27-27. We were talking during the break that there was a chance for the Cardinals to score there late in the fourth. What could have been easily a pick six by that Cardinals defense, or at least a pick and get yourself in field goal range. What did you take away from Kyler Murray's first start in the NFL as, the number 1 overall pick and former Heisman winner?
He threw 54 times, but only 29 of them were completed. So I think he's got to work on, getting completions and getting that completion percentage up, because right now it's just over 50%. And, you saw some of the stats he had in the preseason. So I just think, he's getting used to the NFL game, and I think he's going to get better. It's just working game by game to get better and be a quarterback that we don't have to call a bust.
He did not look good in that first half at all. And then in the second half, looked like a completely different player in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Larry Fitzgerald is really his security blanket.
That's what I was going to say, too.
He may be old, but
he's got some of the best hands in the league.
Yeah, he can still catch the football for sure.
And that's one of the reasons I drafted Larry Fitzgerald in fantasy. I didn't start him this week because I had Adam Thielen and Tyreek Hill. But Larry Fitzgerald's put up 17.3 points. He was only projected, I believe it was 7 or 8. But for Kyler Murray, I definitely think David Johnson getting going on the ground will open up that pass game for him a little bit. Shaking off the nerves, obviously being a rookie and having so much, such high expectations. But Larry Fitzgerald is going to be your bailout. If you need, especially getting towards that red zone, look for Larry Fitzgerald. He's proven himself season in, season out, that he can catch that football in a one-on-one situation. And like you said, Jack, he is old. I guess Jack. We're going to go Delperdang and McMonigal. We're going to go last names here. You guys can keep Jack and Jack for your own radio show. But Larry Fitzgerald and his for sure hands, being a veteran in this league, probably winding down towards the end of his career, but still plenty of pep in his step, if you would say. Kyler Murray definitely needs to utilize him while he has him in Arizona. Because other than that, who else had Delperdang, as you're looking at the stat sheet there, who else had the second most receiving yards for the Cardinals?
David Johnson.
The running back. Again, we go back to running backs catching the ball out of the backfield being a huge deal.
Their their third was also their backup running back for David Johnson. So.
Really?
Yep.
So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Kyler Murray, if you're a Cardinals fan, I guess you take it as a win, right? He didn't lose his debut. That's got to be the first time in NFL history where your NFL debut you end in a tie. I'd like to look that up and see if that's a possibility. That's the first time that's ever happened.
I hate ties.
I do. We had two. We had two last year in 1 week, and I just
Plus
I don't get it. In college, you go until one team wins. In the NFL, go until one team wins. I mean, you guys are professionals. You don't tie.
They shorten the overtime too.
How long is it now?
They shortened it to 10
It was 15.
minutes.
Now it's 10.
Now it's 10. You might as well just give each team their ball on the own 30 and say go until you can't score. And if it comes down to this game goes from a 27-27 to a 42-36 or something, 42-38, so be it. I mean, people will watch. Fans will love it. You want to get ratings, right?
It was the only game on at the time, too.
So you're going to watch a 10-minute overtime for a team to tie.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I never like it. Other than soccer, well, I guess hockey you can tie as well. But in professional sports, I mean, I don't think there should be ties, whether that be in football, hockey, soccer, baseball. You don't tie. That's almost like a participation medal, in my opinion. You don't tie.
Hockey has a point system, too. So,
yes, they do.
So it's not like it comes down to winning percentage or most wins versus losses.
Nope, it's a point.
It's points.
But that's not what the NFL is.
Yeah. I don't get it.
As we look, we've been talking about week 1, looking on to week 2. We were talking earlier, Kansas City goes to Oakland. That'll be a big game for the Chiefs, definitely. I'll be watching that game. Be glued to the TV while at work, getting paid to watch football. I gotta love that. But what else jumps off the schedule for you guys moving into week 2?
I think big one to watch is big NFC North tilt in Green Bay this weekend. The Vikings go to the Packers. Both teams they get a win early, so I think whoever wins this one is going to have a leg up in the division race for at least for now. So I think if the Vikings can go to Green Bay and get the job done, that'd be a huge confidence booster and really show everybody in the NFC, kind of what the Vikings are about, that this team is legit. And then I think if the Packers win, Green Bay, I think it's just going to be a big NFC North matchup to decide who's got the leg up in that divisional race in the early on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Green Bay, they really slowed down the Bears' running game in week 1. Obviously, the Vikings, Kirk Cousins only threw the ball, I believe it was like 10 times in the first week. They really relied on Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, their draft pick, on the ground under their new offensive coordinator. Be interested to see if that works against Green Bay or if Kirk Cousins will have to air it out to Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. He does have good weapons. Last year, he really struggled. Interested to see how he does this year.
And as we keep it here in week 2, I'm also sticking with the NFC. An NFC championship matchup with a lot of controversy that ended last year in New Orleans at Los Angeles. That's going to be a 3:25 start time on Fox. Drew Brees did not look good in that opening half last night against the Texans. Threw a red zone pick. Really didn't get going until the second half. And then the Rams, the run game, almost non-existent. Todd Gurley not really getting going on the ground. His backup actually had 2 touchdowns. I think it was only like 40-some yards and 2 touchdowns, so a huge fantasy win if somehow you took him. But I think that game, I don't know if it'll get chippy. I definitely think that it'll be competitive throughout. I think it'll be a great game to watch as we're looking. The Kansas City-Oakland game will be on CBS, and then we'll have the New Orleans and Los Angeles game on Fox. So those will be 2 games you'll want to switch back and forth just to see, I guess when all 4 offenses are on the field. If you can split screen your TV or pull it up on your laptop or something, definitely watch both those games.
Rather than Chicago and Denver.
Yeah. I guess with it being at Denver, I'm definitely going to find a way to not watch that game and watch the Saints and Rams game. That is what I like.
Interesting thing there is Vic Fangio, Denver's coach, was the Bears' defensive coordinator last year. Week 2 already, he goes back.
Okay, gotcha.
Face his former team at home, but
as we're talking about Denver a little bit, Joe Flacco looked lost last night.
He did.
Joe Flacco, the look, he was giving out Eli Manning looks. He was like, huh? Like, am I on a football field right now? it's just amazing to me that after Peyton Manning left Denver, that they really just went ahead and fell off the cliff. They really have yet to put together a competitive season since that Super Bowl run with Manning.
John Elway hasn't been able to find a quarterback.
You've
had Paxton Lynch. I mean,
do you
Case
tank
Keenum
for Tua?
last year.
Tank for Tua. Who are you tanking for? If Miami's tanking for Tua, who's the Broncos tanking for?
Probably Herbert from Oregon, I would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be a good option for them.
And he would have good weapons coming in. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton. I really thought they would use the Hawkeye in me, but I thought they would use Noah Fant more.
He dropped a pass in the red zone there that could have put him within 1st and goal.
Oh, did he?
Yes, I was watching that. But then the running back situation with Phillip Lindsay and
Royce Freeman,
the rookie last year, those are two guys that could really just run that ball game, run the clock down. Phillip Lindsay last year, just an absolute monster on the field, just really shocked a lot of people being undrafted, signing with a team that already had pretty much 3 running backs on their roster already. But he got the starting nod last night, and then Royce Freeman looked good in his carries. I mean, take it as a small win that you do have 2 running backs that can be successful on the ground, but unless Joe Flacco can figure out how to throw the ball and complete it downfield, it's not going to open up the run game for both of those guys.
And Derek Carr looked like he didn't really need Antonio Brown in this game either.
Didn't.
Tyrell Williams, he was Phillip Rivers' number 2 the past couple seasons. Obviously, they had Keenan Allen. I was interested to see how he stepped up as now being a number 1. He was going to be covered by Chris Harris, who's an elite corner for Denver. He had a really good game. They also have Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
First-round pick out of Alabama, running back. And then tight end Darren Waller had a nice debut also.
Yeah, another game I'm looking at is the Monday night matchup. The Cleveland Browns go to New York to play the Jets.
Oh, jeez.
The Browns are a team that I thought, in my opinion, from the beginning were a little bit overhyped.
I'd agree.
And I honestly think they showed us why they were overhyped on Sunday. Baker Mayfield just didn't have it.
Nick Chubb didn't have it either on the ground.
Nick Chubb didn't have it. OBJ with the $250,000 watch on didn't have it.
Yeah, I mean, you can flash your money all you want, but put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
You need the Browns.
Lose by 30 at home in the opener.
Yeah, and
to Tennessee, who wasn't even supposed to be that good.
No, and you think about this as I was watching.
Derrick Henry ran all over him.
Watching several NFL just analysts on Twitter and whatnot before that game, and I mean, people were drinking the Kool-Aid so hard. I mean, if I had a little button there where I could go, oh yeah. Everybody loved the Browns going into this season, and they were like Super Bowl or bust. But really, it looks like, taking the Browns to the Super Bowl is just going to be talking about dropping a number 2. The Browns did not look good in Week 1. The chemistry there between Mayfield, OBJ, and then Jarvis Landry, none of it was there. And to be honest, looking into the stands, none of the fans were there in Cleveland either.
No.
For a team that is super hyped up, they didn't have that full of a stadium, and I can't believe tickets are that expensive. Still in Cleveland. I mean, last year they were practically giving them away. You can't jack prices up that high as an organization and expect fans to come in. But I mean, talk all this talk, but where are the Browns going to be at the end of the season? I don't think they make the playoffs. I really don't.
I think they'll be probably 7-9, 8-8 at best.
Okay.
Yeah. Pittsburgh didn't look very good in the opener, obviously, against the Patriots, but I think they'll win the division. And one thing on the Browns, good Lord, 18 penalties, 182 yards, completely undisciplined first game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. You can't, if you're just shooting yourself in the foot, you're taking 2 steps forward, 4 steps back if you're getting that many penalties. That game, that Monday night matchup, New York, the Jets, what'd they do? They lost?
They
Jets
won.
were up.
They beat Buffalo.
They beat Buffalo.
Or did they end up
No, they
losing?
lost.
No, they
They were
lost.
up.
That 17.
They were up
apologies.
16-0 and
Yeah.
then choked it away.
Choked it away to Josh Allen and the Buffs.
Exactly.
With
Le'Veon Bell looked pretty good for the Jets, but
Did he?
other than that, I mean, he doesn't really have any other weapons except for Jamison Crowder
John
out
Brown
there
looked
right
good
now.
for the Bills.
Yep.
7 receptions for 123 yards.
No, I mean that was
Battle
other
of the-
than the Green Bay Chicago game, that was the lowest scoring game we had in the NFL.
Yep.
And that really came down to 17 unanswered points in the second half for the Bills there.
Yeah, it was 6-0 for the longest time, and the only 6 points was a pick 6 for the Jets. So
Pick 6 and a missed extra point,
and a missed extra point,
which
yeah.
which ended up costing him.
Yeah, it really did. Could have been 17-17.
17, exactly.
Overtime, possible tie. If a game goes to
Oh my
overtime
gosh.
in the NFL, I'm just going to mark it as a tie on my sheet. I might just turn the TV off because it just seems like you can't get anything done within those 10 minutes unless you have.
I like the college tie better.
Yeah.
Format.
Yeah,
I can't watch
college
10 more
format.
minutes of football for it to be nothing and
Yeah.
it to stay the same score or both teams get 3
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something I refuse to accept in my football life. I guess just lastly, moving over this sheet here.
That could be a good NFC East matchup, that Dallas-Washington game.
Yeah, that is something I was going to talk about a little bit. I mean, Dak Prescott, it really wasn't. I mean, Zeke got paid, yes, but he didn't really produce on the ground that much. It was really a Dak and Amari
Prescott
Cooper. Amari Cooper looked amazing in that opener as well. But that'll be huge, especially with Case Keenum in Washington. And if you saw this, for the first time in Adrian Peterson's career, he was a healthy scratch. He was scratched from that lineup, completely healthy. First time in his career for a running back that really, he rushed over 1,000 yards last year for the Redskins. They gave it to Geis, the nod to Geis, coming off of ACL surgery last year.
He got hurt again.
Did he really?
Yeah, he's out week 2 already.
Oh, my God.
They don't know how long he's going to be out, but yeah.
So, yeah, I guess, I mean, for AP to get scratched after being, a veteran, really showing that he can still run with the best of them, kind of shocking to me. I really hope that he comes out week 2 with Geis out and just runs all over Dallas. I really hope he does. I hope he runs and, I mean, throw the Walker away, just freaking come out and just screaming with that football. But that will be a good matchup, and that's one of the games at noon that I would be interested to watch, along with this Arizona and Baltimore game. At Baltimore, Lamar Jackson coming home. Are they going to be able to put up 59 again? Is he going to throw 5 more touchdowns? He really looked good in the air. I mean, it looked like a flick of the wrist, and that ball was sailing 50, 60 yards downfield. So that'll be interesting to watch and to see if Kyler Murray will be able to lead the Cardinals.
There were a lot of really good quarterback performances this past week.
Yeah,
and I know it was against the Giants, but Dak Prescott, obviously they have new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. His offense looked really good. They spread the ball out a lot. Obviously, they still have Amari Cooper. They even got Jason Witten a touchdown. He's bald now, apparently.
Jason Witten
I saw him on the sideline. Yeah. He's probably the first Monday Night Football analyst to ever come back and catch a touchdown, I would think.
But
yeah, Dak looked good. They're probably going to pay him, I would think, soon. Especially in this new offense, if he can keep it up, I would think he would be worth the investment.
Yeah, I mean, you did play the Giants. Take it as it is. The Giants aren't very good.
They have
as much as they love to think that they can compete with teams like the Redskins and with the Cowboys. But
they have 2 good players with Barkley and Evan Ingram.
That's about it. I mean, you got a washed-up Manning brother and Eli. You've got a guy, Daniel Jones, sitting on the bench.
Another wide receiver hurt for the Giants, concussion.
Yeah,
Sterling
Shepard, yeah.
Golden Tate is still suspended for.
Yeah, so the Giants are very thin at the
very
wide receiver
thin.
core.
Yeah,
they were already subpar last year on defense. Obviously, they lost their 2 best defensive players, Landon Collins. Isn't he in Washington? And then Olivier Vernon also left. I'm not sure where he ended up, but.
Yeah. Speaking about Washington, did you guys see Vernon Davis's touchdown?
Oh, my gosh.
And then
nice.
seeing him break down, I believe it was his grandfather that passed away on Saturday, and he said he was going to play for him. And for an old man, he jumped pretty high there and then just kept those feet churning and burning for that touchdown. I was shocked to see that out of the old man.
He got hit in midair, like as he jumped over the guy, and he maintained his balance, and then
He's a really
away.
strong tight end. He won't be, in my opinion, even with this week 1, he won't be a top 5, top 10 tight end coming towards the end of this year. But that was really special for him after the loss in his family, and then just real special for the Redskins to be able to be there for him and for them to get the W there to start week 1. Definitely special and, heartwarming to see out of Washington. So as we're going to hit this 9:45 mark here within a couple of minutes, hot takes. We're trying to get a few more things on the show here rather than us just talking. We're going to next week start playing a few more games. I want to hear your hot takes here, whether that be NFL, college football, MLB, which we didn't talk about because football's back. Once we get into the postseason, first warning here, we'll start talking a lot more about college or Major League Baseball, excuse me. But hot takes, what do you guys have? On the spot. Come on.
Okay, I got one.
Okay, let's hear it.
And I know there's a lot of teams, and I'm not going to pick a specific team.
Okay.
But I don't think it'll be an Alabama-Clemson national championship.
Ooh, I like hearing that. Music to my ears. Who you got?
Well, okay, so
Pick a team. Come on.
LSU looked really good, right?
Yep.
I think they can beat Alabama. I also think Georgia can beat Alabama.
Jake Fromm.
Yep. So if LSU can beat Alabama in the regular season, and also Georgia can beat them in the championship game, I doubt Alabama gets in with 2 losses.
Okay, yeah, that'll be something. I mean, the committee might do it anyways because they're just Alabama, but that would be, highly suspect if they do. I like that. I like thinking college football is definitely gonna,
Give me some parity.
Yeah, switch up teams. Get some fresh blood because I hate seeing that.
I'll say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, with Jalen Hurts.
Clemson national championship.
But here's the thing with your hot take about Alabama not being in the national championship game. When Nick Saban loses the college football national championship, Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl. Look it up. Every time Nick Saban has lost the national championship game, except for 1 year, I think, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots have won the Super Bowl.
I'm not sure I want to.
That's why I hate that.
I'm not sure I want back-to-back in the NFL.
Back in 08-09.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, correlation completely crisscross. No way that those two, align or make any sense, but just somehow that's how it works.
Not sure I want a back-to-back.
Yeah, I don't want to see Tom
Pats.
Brady be in the Super Bowl again. Sorry. McGonigal, moving on to you. Hot take.
I'm going to go baseball, and I think
okay, like to hear that.
I think I'm going to see Houston win it 2 out of 3 years.
Okay. I like
the Astros. I think they got everything what it takes. Like, look at the last 2 games. In their last 2 games, they've won 15-0 and 21-1.
Yeah.
So I think Houston's got the best starting pitching in the game, and I think the offense, just by looking at the numbers, you got the best leadoff in the game, George Springer, and then you got a middle infield core that's just unbelievable with Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa. And then just so many factors that build around those guys. And then obviously with the starting pitching, you got Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, many other guys too. So Greinke as well.
A trade there in the middle of the year.
You're gonna have 1-2 in the Cy Young and the AL.
So I think Houston. I think Houston's gonna hoist one in late October again.
Yeah.
Against
the Dodgers again.
I think we might see the LA Dodgers because I'm not sure who else I'd see from the NL.
Probably Atlanta.
Maybe Atlanta.
Yeah.
Well, as Ben Helwig hops back into the studio here, my hot take. This one's going to rip your heart out. Milwaukee doesn't make the postseason. Take that, Mike.
Are they in it right now?
They're 2 games out of the wild card. In their past, what is it? I think they are completely 500 as they match up in their last, I forget how many games. They're like right at 500.
They have won 5 of their last 6, as they took 3 or 4 from the Cubs, and then they just beat the Marlins yesterday. They have a really easy schedule to end the season. They got like the Marlins, they got the Cardinals this weekend, the Padres are in there, Pirates. They have a pretty manageable schedule the rest of the way, but they dug themselves into way too big a hole. The starting pitching has been really bad. The bullpen has been nothing the same as it was last year. And I kind of gave up on, not gave up, but I kind of was telling to my friend, like they were like 6.5 back in the wild card. just like 2 weeks ago, and they're like 8 back in the division. I kind of given up on them, and now they're going to try and give me hope here, which just is so annoying because now I'm going to get back invested. But no, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs either. They just do not have a very good rotation.
I mean, and with a guy that has back-to-back career years in Christian Yelich, I mean, you hate to say that's wasted talent, but then you see that with Mike Trout in Los Angeles with the Angels.
Yeah. And it's like Yelich is playing on like a really manageable contract too, so it's not like wasted talent because he's still a bargain, and he's keeping the Brewers single-handedly in some of these games. The games he had against Chicago on Saturday was ridiculous. The 3 stolen bases and a triple and then a walk-off double. Like, he's crazy, man. And like I got 40 home runs, 30 stolen bases. Like, I may have missed this because I just walked back in, but who do you guys got as NL MVP right now? I know you're a Dodger
we
fan.
didn't talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, whoever doesn't win, that would be
I think it's between
unreal.
Bellinger.
It's got to be Belly or Yelly, right?
Yeah, Bellinger, Yelly, and then I think Ryu has the NL Cy Young.
Oh, yeah, he's been good.
And then even Ronald Acuna, he's probably going to finish 3rd in the MVP.
But he's been so good.
And he's going to get 40 homers, 40 bags.
He is a guy that, I mean, we haven't seen a player like that since Mike Trout entered the league. Yeah. I think he is the NL's Mike Trout.
Pete Alonso, too. He's got.
Yep. And we were talking about this before.
Yep.
In 19 games they have left or something like that, he needs 6 home runs to beat
Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge's rookie home run. So I think it's definitely possible. I didn't think we'd see Judge's rookie home run record broken for a while. I thought that was going to stand for years to come, but the balls are juiced, man. The balls are juiced.
Who do you have as the NL MVP? I think they're going to give it to Bellinger, and it's probably warranted because they've been so good this year. But I
go Bellinger just because of how successful his season has been and led to the Dodgers' success.
Yeah.
Yes, Yelich has had equal to, you might even say, a better season than Bellinger because of the stolen bases. But Milwaukee's success just hasn't shown that.
They really dropped off while Dodgers, despite making the World Series, have gotten better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go Bellinger for the NL MVP.
And I'm sure, do you even
I'll
need to
agree
say
with
it?
that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Dodger fan over here.
My bold prediction, I got other one. Arizona makes the wild card.
No, get out of here.
Really?
What are they, like 3 back?
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
2.5 back, okay.
They have a very manageable schedule coming up.
Hot take.
And who would have thought that they would have made it even at the All-Star break? So in the offseason, they lost Pollock, who went to the Dodgers.
Goldschmidt.
Coincidentally. Goldschmidt, yep, he's on the Cardinals. You lose your horse, Patrick Corbin, he's on the Nats. And then at the All-Star break, you think you're out of it, so you trade Zach Greinke, get some prospects back. I mean, that's 4 guys. That's probably your 4 best players from last year.
There's one team that does that every year where it seems like they give up at the trade deadline and then they get really good. Like 2 years ago, I know it was the Twins. Also, the Twins, do the Twins have a chance?
The Twins, I think the Twins do have a chance.
They can mash, man. They're really good.
They're going to make the playoffs.
Well, they should win the division.
Yeah, they'll win the division because the division is trash this year.
They've tailed off a little bit, but...
Chance you give them at beating Houston or the Yankees?
I think they could beat the Yankees.
You think so?
The Yankees have dominated the Twins over the course of the playoffs over the last 20 years. But I actually think they could. The Yankees starting pitching isn't that good, and I don't know if Severino's even going to come back.
No.
That hurt me in fantasy.
Yeah, Severino, man. He's still waiting on that. But
the Twins pitching is going to be the key because obviously their lineup is really good.
Their lineup just isn't as well known as
right.
the Yankees. Otherwise, I think the Twins are just as good, and if not better, than the Yankees because they've hit more home runs, haven't they?
They have. So it goes Twins, and then it goes Yankees, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Astros are right behind that in the home run list. But I think throughout the AL side of this playoff bracket, when we do get there, I think these scores are going to be humongous.
Oh, yeah.
I think like 12-10 Dodgers-Astros numbers.
The ball's going to be flying out of the yard, and it's not going to matter where the games are at.
Right.
It's not going to matter if it's outside at Yankee Stadium with that short porch or, I mean, if you think the Yankees have the short porch in right field, the Astros have the short porch in left field. Minnesota, it's not that deep they do have that monster wall in right field, but it's still not that deep. So I really think, at least in the AL, these games are going to be high scoring versus in the NL, I think it might come down to pitching and maybe, a solo or a 2-run shot that'll win the game. So I think it's completely flip-flopped in the fact that It might be pitching matchups in the NL and just offensive powerhouses in the AL.
Yeah, it's kind of wild considering last year and just the bullpen route just is probably going to be the way teams have to go nowadays. We saw the A's do it last year, Brewers, obviously the Royals won a World Series doing it, but like these starting pitchers can't last because they're just getting bombarded in the first couple innings. Yeah, they're just getting crushed.
You talked about the Twins having not really household names. Looking at this home run list right here, Max Kepler has 36. Nelson Cruz has 35. That's both good for top 15 in baseball.
My friend named his dog after Max Kepler.
Really?
Named him Kepler, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You never hear anything about either of those guys.
No, Max Kepler's been so good this year.
Yeah.
You said Jose Barrios. He's a solid pitcher for the Twins. Miguel Sano.
The thing with that lineup is top to bottom, everybody can hit home runs.
Yeah.
Like you were just saying there, the top 1 and 2 haven't even reached 40 yet on that
crazy.
roster.
Yeah.
So
I think Marwin Gonzalez, who was a good player on those Astros like World Series contenders, like those, he's a bench player. I don't think he starts usually.
No.
It's crazy.
That is crazy. I love baseball.
He flipped that 2017 World Series with game 2 home run in the 9th inning. Otherwise, the Dodgers go up 2-0.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw a tear rolling down your face as you said that. So, but I'm sorry, I don't. Ethan, you should probably wrap up the show because I just came back, so I don't even know what we've been talking about. I just heard baseball and just saw
baseball
hot mic and just walked in. Matt Kirkle's in here, general manager of sports programming. Matt, what do you got? You got anything sports hot take you have to get out of the way?
Yeah, come on, Matt. Hot take. We're on the seat here.
Skurs by 90, always.
That's a hot take I can get behind every single week, even though I might cry my eyes out. But that is going to do it for us here at First Warning at MavRadio.fm. It's been a pleasure with you guys as always. I'm Ethan Wolbach for Ben Helwig, Jack Delperdang, and Jack McMonigal. This has been fun. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again next Tuesday from 8 to 10 a.m. Keep it tuned right here on MavRadio.fm.
This has been a MavRadio.fm podcast from the School of Communication at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. We know you have a million choices for content, so thank you for choosing us. Until next time, power with us, MavRadio.fm.